The laughter was a high, cruel chorus in the gilded ballroom of the Chicago Hilton, during my cousin Rebecca's lavish wedding reception. A celebration of old money and new connections where I, Sophie Mitchell, felt like a ghost in a borrowed dress, the poor relation from the forgotten branch of the family. My mother having passed when I was young, and my father, a kind but struggling teacher, unable to provide the polish my wealthy aunt and uncle demanded. I was hiding near the ice sculpture, a swan slowly melting into a puddle of my own irrelevance, when I overheard them, my cousins Rebecca, resplendent in her gown, and her brother, Andrew, sharp in his tuxedo, standing with a circle of their privileged friends. "Oh, that's just Sophie," Rebecca said, following someone's gaze toward me, her voice dripping with a fox sweetness that curdled the air. "She's sweet, in a very simple way. She'll probably end up a secretary or something. Maybe a nanny. Certainly nothing that requires a real mind or backbone." Andrew chuckled, swirling his scotch. "Dad offered to get her a receptionist job at the firm, but she said she was interested in justice. Or some knot of a thing. Probably watched too many lawyer shows. Our kind of law is for people with pedigree, not charity cases." Their friends tittered, and the words, simple, secretary, charity case, pierced through the din of the orchestra and clinking glasses, landing in the pit of my stomach with the force of a physical blow. I stood frozen, the melting swan's droplets mirroring the hot tears of shame threatening to spill down my cheeks. My aunt, Eleanor, Rebecca's mother, glided over then, placing a condescending hand on my shoulder. "Don't look so tragic, dear. They're just teasing. But they're not entirely wrong. You should be practical. Find a nice, stable job. The law is a brutal world. You're not built for that kind of fight." That night, in the tiny attic room I was staying in at my aunt's mansion, the silence was louder than the orchestra. I stared at the single suitcase that held my life, thrift store clothes, a dog-eared copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, and a burning, secret dream of becoming a public defender. My father's gentle voice on the phone earlier, saying, "Just be grateful for their hospitality, Sophie," felt like a life sentence to gratitude for crumbs. I was not built for the fight. The fury that rose in me then was cold, clear, and decisive. I would not be their charity case, their simple secretarial prospect. I would enter the very arena they said was closed to me, and I would do it without their name, their money, or their approval. At dawn, I left a thank you note on the pillow, took the last of my savings, and boarded a train out of Chicago, the city's skyline shrinking behind me, not with a sense of loss, but with the grim determination of a soldier going to war, a war they didn't even know they had started. The first battlefield was a cramped studio apartment above a laundromat in Minneapolis, the perpetual hum and smell of detergent my new reality. My uniform was a polyester smock at a big box bookstore, my world the endless alphabetizing of romance novels and self-help guides. My meals a careful calculus of Raymond and Day, old bakery markdowns. The loneliness was a vast, cold lake I swam in every day, the silence broken only by the rattle of the laundromat dryers below. I took a second job as a nighttime office cleaner, vacuuming empty corporate suites in downtown skyscrapers, my reflection in the dark windows a pale, tired ghost. I moved with the desperate rhythm of the underemployed, a data entry temp in Des Moines, a call center agent in Omaha, a barista in Denver, each job a stopgap, each city a lesson in anonymity. My dream of law school seeming more ludicrous with every passing month. My cousins' voices a mocking echo in my head charity case. In a particularly bleak winter in Salt Lake City, working as a hotel night auditor, I would sit in the empty lobby at 3 a.m. and let silent tears of despair fall onto the registration desk, wondering if my aunt was right. If I was just a simple girl with delusions of grandeur. The turning point was as unglamorous as my life had become. One of the hotel guests, an older woman traveling alone, had a medical emergency in her room. I called 911, stayed with her, and handled the panicked front desk with a calm I didn't know I possessed. After the ambulance left, she thanked me, gripping my hand. "You have a good head in a crisis," she said. "You should be in charge of more than a hotel log." She was a retired judge from Oregon. Her words, simple and direct, cut through the fog of my self-doubt. The next day, I went to the public library and researched community college paralegal certificates. The journey from that hotel lobby to a position of authority in the American justice system was a decade-long siege against my own limitations. I enrolled in a paralegal program in Phoenix, working days as a legal secretary for a harried solo practitioner who paid me in experience and meager wages. I typed briefs, filed motions, and absorbed the language of the law like a second tongue. I saved every penny, lived in a shared house with 3 other aspiring law students, and ate more beans and rice than I thought possible. I transferred to a state university, majoring in criminal justice, working full-time as a paralegal for a gritty public defender's office in Las Vegas. There, I saw the law not as a game for the pedigreed, but as a vital, messy tool for the defenseless. It hardened my resolve. I studied for the LSAT on my lunch breaks, and in the bleary hours after midnight, I got into a mid-tier law school in Seattle, not with family connections, but with grit, good grades, and a compelling personal statement about cleaning offices and comforting a stranger. Law school was a financial and mental gauntlet. I survived on loans, scholarships, and a relentless work ethic that made my former, simple life look easy. I thought of Andrew, probably a junior partner at his father's firm by now, golfing with clients. I used his dismissive chuckle as fuel during all-night study sessions. I graduated, passed the bar on my second attempt, and my first job was as a low-level deputy prosecutor in a struggling county in eastern Washington. The uniform was a simple, affordable suit, but it was mine. The revenge was in the quiet accumulation, each case file mastered, each courtroom procedure learned, each, "Your Honor," spoken with growing confidence. I found my calling not in high-dollar corporate law, but in the gritty, essential work of a special victims unit prosecutor. The work was emotionally draining, often thankless, but it was a fight that mattered. I prosecuted crimes against children and the elderly, my simple empathy now a powerful tool to connect with victims and juries. I worked tirelessly, building a reputation for being meticulously prepared, fiercely ethical, and unshakably calm in court. I rose through the ranks, from deputy to senior deputy to finally Chief Deputy District Attorney for the Special Victims Unit in a major metropolitan area in California. My authority was now real. I led a team of attorneys, decided which cases to charge, and stood before judges as the representative of the people of the state of California. I bought a small, tidy condo, not with family money, but with the sweat of my own brow. The cousins who belittled me were a distant memory, their world of country clubs and trust funds irrelevant to the world I inhabited, where justice was the only currency that mattered. The reckoning arrived not in a ballroom, but in a sterile, tense courtroom in San Francisco. A complex, high-profile financial fraud case had landed in our white-collar division. A family-run investment firm, Whitman and Associates, was accused of bilking elderly investors out of their life savings. The case was a minefield of complex financial instruments and high-powered defense attorneys. Due to a conflict in the SVU, I was asked to chair the lead prosecutor to lend my trial expertise. I walked into the packed courtroom on the first day of trial, my suit a uniform of authority, my posture one of quiet command. As I took my seat at the prosecution table and arranged my notes, I glanced across the aisle at the defense table. And there, pale and wide-eyed, sat my cousin Andrew. Not as a lawyer, his pedigree had secured him a partnership, but not, it seemed, a spot at the trial table of a sinking ship. He was there as a defendant. A junior partner? Yes, but one named in the indictment for his role in selling the fraudulent products. And in the gallery, dressed in expensive, but funereal black, sat my Aunt Eleanor and cousin Rebecca. Their faces masks of terrified privilege. They had not seen me in over a decade. Their eyes, scanning the room for their saviors, landed on me. The confusion was absolute. It contorted into dawning, horrific recognition. They saw me not as simple Sophie, but as Chief Deputy D.A. Mitchell, the person whose job it was to put their son and brother in prison. Andrew's jaw went slack. Rebecca looked as if she'd been slapped. My Aunt Eleanor's hand fluttered to her throat, her eyes, for the first time in her life, looking at me not with pity, but with pure, unadulterated fear. The trial was long and brutal. I was relentless in my examination of their expert witnesses, methodical in presenting the evidence of their greed. I did not look at my family. I looked at the jury, at the victims, the elderly couples who had lost everything. In my closing argument, I spoke about trust betrayed, about the powerful exploiting the vulnerable. I was not their cousin. I was the voice of the people they had harmed. The verdict came back, guilty on all counts for the firm's principals, and for Andrew. As the judge read the verdict, Andrew hung his head. My aunt began to weep silently, not the dignified tears of a ballroom, but the ragged, ugly sobs of a mother whose world was crumbling. Rebecca stared straight ahead, her face a blank monument to shattered entitlement. After the court was adjourned, as I was packing my briefcase, my aunt approached the bar. The bailiff moved to stop her, but I waved him off. She stood there, this woman who had once told me what I was built for, looking small and broken. "Sophie, please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He's family." I met her gaze, my expression one of professional calm, untouched by malice or triumph. "Mrs. Whitman," I said, using her married name, the name of the firm she was so proud of. "My duty is to the victims. The court will decide his sentence." I turned and walked away, joining my colleagues. I did not look back. The revenge was complete, and it was utterly, devastatingly legal. The cousin they called a charity case had become the architect of their downfall, not out of spite, but out of a commitment to a justice they had never understood. The simple girl had won the most complex fight of all, not in their world of gilded ballrooms, but in the hallowed, equalizing arena of an American courtroom.